15 years ago, Rick and Marianne were birds of a feather.
What the hell are you doing here?
Being shot in the butt.
Now,
down on the floor.
they're sitting ducks.
Oh, my God!
Oh,
Do I get to know what's going on, or do I just get killed for old time's sake?
God.
Mel Gibson, Goldie Hawn,
This is not a good time to be talking about this, Marianne.
Bird on a Wire, rated PG-13. Starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is a review of the 1990 action comedy Bird on a Wire. Now, I thought I had this separately on DVD, but after looking through my entire DVD collection, I found out that was not the case, and I only had it as a part of this multi-pack. And this is a decent deal. I got it at Walmart a while back. There's some good films on here, and one of them is Bird on a Wire. Bird on a Wire is a film directed by John Badham, who would go on to direct films like The Hard Way. He's done other movies like Blue Thunder, and to me, he is a really underrated and excellent director who deserves more recognition than he gets. Because yes, he is a director that does get acclaim and he does get mentioned, but he gets mentioned for maybe one or two films. And I feel that he has a much better track record of films than just one or two movies in his filmography. And to me, Bird on a Wire is one of those movies. He set out to make a zany comic book, over-the-top, rollicking adventure with this movie. And I feel he succeeded, and then some. I love the propulsion with his direction in this. It's very lively, it's very energetic, it matches the comic timing of the two leads perfectly. And the way that he shot the action sequences were thrilling, they really were quite rousing, and I also felt that he did a good job working with his actors, getting the most out of them, and on top of that, dealing with complicated sequences, whether it has to do with the stunts or the action, like the airplane sequence, or some of the other chases in the film, or the finale that deals with real animals, live animals in the zoo. I really feel that this is a great bit of direction by John Badham. And he's not a bad director by any means, and this is not a bad job. I think it's one of his better directing efforts. And I think his direction is a big reason why the film works as well as it does. To me, he's every bit as integral to this film's success as someone like Robert Zemeckis was to Romancing the Stone. And the reason why I bring up Romancing the Stone is this has a very similar vibe to it. The romantic, novel, over-the-top zaniness mixed with enough seriousness and an edge to make it resonate on a completely different level than just pure fluff. And I feel that this and Romancing the Stone and Jewel of the Nile, they come from a similar cloth, and I feel if you enjoy those movies, you're going to get a kick out of Bird on a Wire. The film stars Mel Gibson and Goldie Hawn, who play the two leads, and this is one of those movies that is carried by its personalities. It's carried by the two leads, and the plot is not really the most complex. It's not really the most unique either, but it's still effective enough. It still maintains enough intrigue to keep you involved and willing and wanting to see how things end up. But it's one of those movies where the stars really do carry it. Their personalities, their charisma, that's what carries the film. Not necessarily the screenplay or the story. And I think that simple approach is something a lot of films nowadays are missing. They don't really make a movie that's catered around two stars. they make a film that's catered around the script and how much subtext they're going to have in it, and how many different subplots within a subplot they're going to have. And I feel that there's something that gets lost in translation with that. With a movie like this, it doesn't need to be that complex in terms of the plot. It just needs to be interesting enough and easy enough to follow, so you can just follow the two leads in a breezy, fun adventure. And I think that this is one of those films that really does showcase how effective that approach can be. It doesn't mean that the script by Louis Van Osta and David Seltzer is bad by any means. I think it's a decent screenplay. I like the use of a character who has been in witness protection for many, many years, like Mel Gibson's character in the film. And now his protection has been revoked and he has to try to find a way to survive without the help that he's used to. I like the fact that he used to date and was really infatuated with and in love with Goldie Hawn's character, Marianne. So you have Marianne Graves, you have Richard, and I like their dynamic with one another, and I like their backstory. I like how you feature a lot of different and really rousing and rollicking set pieces when it comes to the action. A plane chase, a motorcycle chase, a finale that takes place in a zoo. That's a really unique finale. And I also like the edge that the screenplay has. It's PG-13, but it does not really feel like it's lost that much when it comes to its edge, when it comes to how much teeth that it has. Because, speaking of teeth, there's a scene later on in the climax where one of the villains gets eaten by piranhas. And he falls in the water, and you see the piranhas, and there's a little bit of blood, and it's not like super gory and super bloody. It's not super violent, but the violence doesn't feel like it's so tame to the point where it doesn't have any balls. And I feel that there's a lot of PG-13 films nowadays that feel that way. And I think this film got away with a lot more than some of the PG-13 films today would, because it's early PG-13. They were still testing the waters with that rating. So some boundaries were able to be pushed here that would not really be able to be pushed now. Not just involving swearing or profanity, but yeah, there's blood squibs in a couple scenes. It's surprisingly violent and gritty for a PG-13 film. And I will say this, the humor here, Mr. Wiggly and some of the other lines are really not that amazing. The whole thing with Mel Gibson's other character, not necessarily character, but the other person that he used to portray, which was this hairdresser, was a little too over the top for me and kind of cringy. But it still works. It's not to the point where it's completely unfunny and tired when it comes to its humor. It does have some really chuckle-worthy moments between Goldie and Mel. Mainly their banter back and forth is really endearing, but it's not what I would call one of the best action comedies in terms of the blend of the two. I think this is a much better action film than a comedy. Uh, and I think if you look at it that way, I think you might see it as a better film. But if you look at it as like a good action movie and a good comedy, I don't think you're really going to get an equal amount of both with this film. That's one of the things that I do feel hold this film back from truly classic status, is the fact that it's not really as funny as it could be. Uh, but the action, when it is there, I really enjoy it. I think it's really a lot of fun. And it's just so much fun to watch these two leads work, to watch Goldie and Mel bicker at one another and really sizzle on the screen. And apparently the intent initially was to have this be a vehicle for Goldie and Kurt. So you'd have Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, but Kurt Russell decided to do Tango and Cash instead. And as much as might have liked to have seen another movie involving Goldie and Kurt, I'm glad that Kurt chose to do Tango and Cash because it's one of my favorite films of his. And I'm glad that it opened the door for Mel Gibson because it enabled him to play off Goldie. And I feel that they were really excellent with each other. And I don't think this film would be as good without that particular pairing. And it took a bit to get Mel to do it because apparently he only agreed to do this when Universal was like, okay, we'll let you rent out this massive guest house so you and your family can stay. Can you please do this movie? Can you sign on the dotted line, Mel? We really want you. And Mel agreed to do it because like, okay, all right, I get a massive mansion for a guest house. I'm all for this. But despite how reluctant he was to do this initially, it doesn't come across that way on the screen. It doesn't seem like Mel Gibson doesn't want to be here. He's having fun. And as a result, it's an enjoyable movie. I know I keep using the same words and terminology, but fun really is a good way to describe Bird on a Wire. And another fun thing about the film is the score by Hans Zimmer. I love this score by him, particularly the bit that plays in the plane chase sequence and a little bit near the end in the zoo scene. I feel that Hans Zimmer, especially early Hans Zimmer, when he did films like Backdraft and Days of Thunder, I think that's some of the most underrated work that he's done. I miss that Hans Zimmer. I'm tired of the Hans Zimmer that we get right now. It's just doing a lot of the same shit. I miss the Hans Zimmer who did genuinely badass scores that weren't just a bunch of music that you really don't want to listen to again and again. Like, for instance, he gets so much praise for his scores for the Batman films by Nolan, and I don't really understand. It's not, I mean, if you listen to the score for this, Backdraft, Days of Thunder, I think those are much better scores. They're much more unique. There's more to them in terms of how they are structured and what kind of instruments he's using. But that's just me personally. But I think this is a really underrated score by Hans Zimmer. It's definitely worth a listen. And the film's also got some other cast members who were brought into the fray that do their jobs really well. I mean, David Carradine and Bill Duke, they play the two bad guys in Eugene and Albert. There's not a ton of character development with these guys, but there's enough there that you know that they are a threat. And I feel that we didn't really need that much. They just needed to be a believable threat and an intimidating enough presence for our two leads, and they were. They effectively did provide that vibe. So I don't really think we really needed that much extra in terms of character development. Would have hurt the film's pacing. Stephen Tobolowsky, he plays this turncoat guy who works at the FBI. Joan Severance is also in this as one of the former girlfriends of Mel Gibson's character. And she's as hot and sexy as ever. And the film features some nice cinematography by Robert Primes, despite the fact that Robert Primes apparently did not get along that well with director John Badham. So much to the point that even though he got hired to do the cinematography for The Hard Way, the frustrations wound up boiling over, and Robert Primes was fired from the production and replaced with a different cinematographer. But despite the strife that was going on between the cinematographer and the director, I still feel it's a nice looking film from a cinematography perspective. It does a good job really bringing out some nice detail from some of the locations that are featured in the film. And there's some really unique takes on how certain scenes are handled when it comes to the editing as well. Uh, I want to give a lot of credit to Frank Morris and Dallas Puett because there are flashback scenes that are shown, and they're in this really unique kind of vision. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is it kind of reminds me of the Predator vision, like the heat vision stuff, but instead it's like some of the contrast is turned up or down, or there's some kind of filter that's thrown in there. It's hard to explain without actually showing you the scenes, but if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. In the flashbacks to Mel Gibson's characters time in Colombia, where Rick was in Colombia and he was dealing with the corrupt uh, FBI agents who were selling drugs. And it does have this really unique filter and overlay on those scenes. And it's an acquired taste, but I know some people might find it distracting, but I loved it because I thought it was just such a really cool and different way to showcase a flashback scene. And yeah, the film, it just goes by at a really breezy pace. It's only 110 minutes, and that's with the end credits. And it did well. I mean, it made $20 million. I mean, it cost $20 million. Sorry, my brain just, I guess, got caught on a wire there for a second. It cost $20 million to make, and it made over $130.8 million worldwide. I think that was the worldwide figure, or maybe that was the figure in the US. I don't remember 100% off the top of my head, but it was a pretty big hit. Yeah, it made 138 million worldwide. It debuted at number one in the box office when it came out at with a $15.3 million box office take. And it's a film that has a really high score when it comes to audiences online, but critics were mixed on it. They didn't really care for it that much. I don't get it. Yes, it's not the most unique and original plot in the world, but at this point, when there have been so many films like this made, I don't think they were really going to be able to do that anyway. So I feel that the right decision was made by focusing in on the strengths of these two stars and their interactions with one another and their energy. And I feel that's what drives the film and drives it to a lot of success. It also helps that they were so willing to do a lot of the physical stuff in the film. Goldie Hawn did her own stunts in this movie, and to this day she has kept her stunt jacket that she earned for her work in the movie. And it's the kind of stuff that you don't see as much nowadays because people aren't doing stunts because they're having a lot of CGI stunt doubles and they're playing it safe, which I understand why they're doing that. But as a result, a lot of action films are losing something. They're losing a sense of reality and a real impact that I feel that they don't have with the CGI stunts and the stuff done behind the green screen. Um, and it's just a really fun, rousing action with some comedy that'll make you laugh, but not anything that's going to be laugh out loud hilarious. I would say the funniest scene is the one when Goldie Hawn deals with a cockroach from hell, but it's a much more effective and noteworthy action movie, at least for me personally. Um, but yeah, to me, it's a gem. You even have the song by Aaron Neville, "Bird on a Wire." It's a really nice cover of a classic song, and I would love to see this on Blu-ray. I want to see Kino Lorber or Shout Factory do a Blu-ray of this, and I don't know how much they're going to be able to get in terms of interviews or commentary tracks or featurettes, but it would be nice to see the film in HD, remastered, and I think it might really open up a lot of people's eyes to this movie. I think this is a film that a lot of people nowadays can still enjoy and get a kick out of because of these two leads, Mel and Goldie, really just going at it at one another and going for broke. And I feel that that's what makes this film a genuine classic. Anyway, thanks for watching my review of Bird on a Wire, and as always, I will see you later. See ya.